Welcome to the Zim Ladies Roundtable podcast. I am Tino. This is my co-host, Dr. Tafi. Join us as we dive into real conversations about empowerment, culture, and progress. Each episode, we share stories, explore important topics, and connect with our vibrant community. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Zim Ladies Roundtable, and tune into BWTV and Cityscape Radio on brownstoneworldwide.com for all our latest content. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at ZimLadiesRT to stay connected.
Hi, everyone. Today we are honored to welcome Mercy Changwesha, an accomplished attorney licensed in North Carolina and Minnesota, with a background in legal studies and conflict resolution from Brunel University and a JD from the University of Virginia School of Law. Mercy has dedicated her career to advocating for equal access to justice. She specializes in immigration law, assisting clients with citizenship and naturalization, family and employment-based green cards, status adjustments, and VAWA petitions for survivors of abuse. As the founder of her own firm in Durham, North Carolina, she remains committed to serving diverse communities with compassion and expertise. Welcome, Mercy.
Welcome.
Thank you so
We're
much.
so happy to have you. Would you like to just give us a little bit? I know I probably gave all of your background there, but would you just like to give us something that we haven't said about you?
Yeah, so that's basically my background. I pretty much do immigration law only. I've been in practice since 2013, so I'm going on about 12 years now. And yeah, it's been a fun ride. It changes every day.
Yes. And, here in the US, we're going through a lot of changes. We have a new president, and our new president has come in, is on fire, is making changes and doing so many things. Can you update us on what the latest immigration laws are? Because I know there are a lot of people that are fearful, whether you're a citizen or you're not a citizen, or you're trying to apply to come here. What can you tell us about this new process that's happening?
Yeah, so I'll say it's all very new. We are just a few days in. There are executive orders that have been put in place. It's changing every day as far as how they are being enforced and the challenges in the courts that are coming up. So this information will probably be different in another 2 weeks. So I'll tell you what we are seeing right now. And like I said, it's new, so we are reviewing it as it comes, and things are changing. So the big one is birthright citizenship. So there is an executive order that was signed that says that is basically reinterpreting how the amendment was written, that says everyone who's born in the US is a US citizen. So according to that executive order, children will no longer be US citizens just because they're born in the US. They'll have to have a parent who is a US citizen or a green card holder. So that has already been challenged in court. It's not currently in place. So children who are being born right now are still US citizens. But that's something that's out there, and depending on how it goes in the courts, it might get implemented. And then the other thing is this administration has really is really cracking down on undocumented immigrants. So there has been an increase in deportations. A lot of people who are undocumented, especially those who have a final order of removal, are going to see those arrests becoming more and more. And I mean, it's been a lot, even in the past just few days. There've been a lot of arrests. There've been a lot of deportation flights. So those are things that are happening in the community. And that's also through an executive order that really just said we're going to enforce the immigration laws in a stricter way. And then the other thing we're also seeing is changes to the asylum process. And this is not affirmative asylum, which is you've come here, say, as a visitor, and you've decided to apply for asylum. That process has not changed. What
Okay.
has changed is seeking asylum at the border. So there were processes in place for doing that. And those things have been shut down. So somebody who, arrives on the southern border and wants to seek asylum no longer has that option. And so, that's something that's also may get challenged. But right now we've seen the app that was being used to schedule your appointment to go for an asylum appointment at the border, that app has already been shut down. So as of appointments that were anytime after 1 p.m. on the 20th were canceled. And that app is gone. The other thing that we're seeing is typically there was a policy of not arresting people in places like schools, hospitals, churches, right? And that has been revoked. So under this current administration, an arrest for immigration enforcement can occur in a church, in a hospital, in a school. And depending on the state, some districts are cooperating with the administration and making it pretty easy for immigration enforcement to occur in those places. Some states are fighting back. So, it's really a time of fear right now because those enforcements are happening in places that historically it didn't happen. And then we've also seen a shift in language. Under the Biden administration, it was undocumented immigrants, non-citizens. And this, the past week, we've seen USCIS posting about aliens, right? We've seen talk of illegal immigrants. So we've seen a shift as well in the language that is being used to address immigrants. And, those are the realities that we were facing right now.
Yes.
I think that's a general idea of the changes that we're seeing. Oh, also, because a national emergency was declared as far as what's happening at the southern border, that means the military may be used to enforce immigration laws. So those are things that we're also seeing.
And there's a lot of fear. Even, I live in Indiana. To be honest, the streets are not as crowded as they normally are. And then even at our office where we work, a lot of Latinos, the building is mostly Latinos. A lot of them haven't shown up because people are just fearful of what's going to happen, whether you're documented or not documented, because apparently it's catching everyone somewhere. It's affecting everyone at some point. So it's really sad and it's scary for everyone. Even though they're not targeting Africans, we also have to kind of wonder, what's our fate in all of this?
Yeah, definitely. And I was reading an article the other day about a lady who is expecting, and she hasn't been to any of her appointments since the inauguration because she's so scared.
Right.
And I think it's just heartbreaking, really.
It is.
So do you think people should continue being fearful to, to go to public places if they're undocumented or aliens, as we're being called? Should they continue being fearful to go to these places? Should they just stay at home and not go to work, not go to school, not, because we did see in the news that I think it was Chicago where they tried to go pick up some children that were undocumented at the schools, and the school denied access. Do you feel like people should continue being fearful?
I think that's the point, is to make people fearful and
Mhm.
and make you do extreme things even, right? And prove a point, right? That um immigrants are a problem. So I think instead of being fearful, really, I think this is the time to really put our leaders to task, right? As far as our local leaders, to really ask your school district, like, what's your plan? What's your policy? What are you going to do? And really just and be very plugged in with your local community to find out what's going on, what's safe, where is it safe. and also to have a plan in place, right? If you have kids and you know that you have a final order of removal and you know that this is something that might happen to you, or you know you're undocumented and this is a possibility for you, make sure you've designated somebody who can pick up your kids. Make sure you have somebody who knows how to access your bank accounts and things like that. That you have a plan in place that in the event that anything happens, because I think once you faced it, right? Once you face the possibility and you've planned for it, I think it's easier for you to go about your day-to-day business.
Right. Right. That's very true. Have you heard any of the recent changes? How they affecting any Zimbabwean nationals, or is just honestly just based here in the U.S.?
So far, I think it's not specifically affecting Zimbabweans like in the sense of there's a specific policy for Zimbabweans. But anybody who falls under that umbrella of you have a final order of removal, or you were given voluntary departure and you never left, or you have a criminal record and you are undocumented, or you are undocumented in general, because sometimes it happens that a search for an undocumented person with a criminal record or a final order of removal puts ICE agents in a household that has other people who are undocumented, even though, you know, they have nothing else going on. So it will affect Zimbabweans in that general sense.
Okay.
And so I mean, it's just good to be informed and to just be prepared. And of course, right now, the easiest way to get in touch with to get in contact with law enforcement is through any type of traffic stop, or you've committed a crime or something like that. So it's definitely a good time to make sure your driver's license is up to date, your tags are up to date, your insurance, simple things like that. Just make sure that it's all covered.
Right. So, we're just continuing with the chat about Zimbabweans. A lot of us still have family back home. And there are a lot of reasons that family back home travel to come visit us. It could be, you have a new baby and they want to come and see the baby. It could be you're ill and someone wants your mother wants to come and take care of you. It could just be for holiday. Have there been any recent changes in the U.S. visa policies that, affect Zimbabwean nationals that are applying for visas to come to the U.S.?
So currently there have not been any changes. Embassies are continuing to do interviews for student visas, visitors visas, employment-based visas. So there haven't been any changes as far as that. And really, if you're eligible for something and the plan is to come visit or have your family visit, you should proceed as normal. Proceed as normal and submit those applications, schedule those interviews. So far, nothing has changed. We know from the previous administration, from the first Trump administration, that there were changes as far as the travel bans and all that, even though it didn't apply specifically to Zimbabweans. But we haven't had any of that right now. Like, there is no travel ban for any country. Who knows what will happen? But the best thing is to proceed with what's on the ground currently. And currently, you can apply for visas and all that.
Okay. What about the family-sponsored green card? Are those processes still the same, or are we looking at another change?
So right now, family-sponsored green cards are still are still something that's happening with no issues. Again, it's been 7 days, right? So we don't know. We don't know if something will happen. Under the first Trump administration, they didn't touch those kinds of processes, and also a lot of the things that the administration can change without going through Congress are policies. They cannot change actual laws. So something like a green card holder is eligible to petition for their spouse, right? That's not something that can be changed through an executive order. So if that's something that they wanted to change, it would have to be a much longer process to change the actual law. So we haven't seen that change. I think the only thing that changed really as far as somebody from outside the country traveling in is the asylum processes at the border and also the refugees. So the refugee program was paused. So even people who had been approved already cannot come in. So those are really the only things I've changed so far.
And you know, as bad as it sounds, I don't want to maybe play a little bit of a devil's advocate. There's a lot of people that came into the country that were criminals. Rape cases were going up, murders were happening. So to an extent, it gives others comfort, but at the same time, it's also terrorizing other people because we don't want everyone being grouped into the same group with everyone who was doing bad things. So it's kind of, you know, it's a catch-22.
And I think that's a fair point. And what you've seen with previous administrations is they've prioritized people who have a criminal record. Like that's always been the priority. Even Obama deported a record number of people, but the priority was people with a criminal record, people who've been convicted of violent crimes and things like that. But this administration's shift is that it's basically their understanding or their interpretation is somebody who is here unlawfully is a criminal because they violated federal immigration law, right? So as far as they're concerned, there's no need to prioritize someone with a criminal record because you're a criminal either way. So that's really where the problem is because you're seeing on the news, you're seeing them coming for a grandpa. I think there was somebody on the news yesterday, a grandpa had been here for 30 years with no criminal record. And it's like, why? So while it's important to keep the country safe and all those things, but when you start targeting people who've been members of the community for years and they've really done nothing wrong other than be present without the proper paperwork, it's it makes it very difficult for people to feel safe.
Right. So with people that have been here for a long time, but they are now able to start the process of being legal in the country. With all the laws that are, affecting immigration, would that be a difficult process for them? Say that person who's been here for 20 years and now, whichever way they've figured out how to become legal, does everything that's going on, does that make it difficult for them or would the process still be the same? For example, if I've been here for 5 years illegally and say I've met someone and now we're married and they've decided to sponsor a green card for me. Would that process be difficult or would ICE basically be knocking at my door?
And that's a valid fear because and I would argue now more than ever, if you're eligible for a benefit, go ahead and file for it, right? The process is still the same. They haven't changed anything. But again, the fear, right, which is the bigger point, that fear of if I submit this application, am I just telling them where I am?
Exactly.
Do I just end up, getting deported? But if you qualify for a benefit, now is the time to go ahead and submit that application. And also, you don't want a situation where you are now applying for a benefit while you are being removed, right? When you had the opportunity to apply for it before you even got into removal proceedings. So, I mean, and I think part of it is really just to make you afraid to even submit the application, right?
Right.
But whenever you are eligible for something and that hasn't changed. So that process is still the same. We haven't gotten anything different. And under the first Trump administration, they didn't they didn't pause those processes either. They just made it a little bit more difficult by requiring like a little bit more. Like I remember under the first Trump administration, you had to submit your credit report or something like that. So, just little things to make it a little bit harder, a little bit annoying.
What? That doesn't make any sense, because if you don't have any documentation, how do you submit a credit report?
Credit report, right.
So yeah, so they had a very big public charge thing going on that first administration to prove that you will not depend on government benefits.
Government.
But again, it didn't have a lot of teeth, but it was just that to make you think, oh, if I can't produce this, then I'm not going to be able to adjust. But
right.
That wasn't the case.
So out of curiosity, if somebody is already going through just piggybacking off my first question, if somebody's already going through the process and they knock at my door and say, hey, you've been illegal for 5 years, but I already have submitted my application. I've submitted all the documentation that they require, and I'm just waiting for that interview. Can they remove me from the United States? Can they start processing deportation, or can they detain me or any of that? Because like we're saying, people are fearful of them, of letting them know where they are if they've been illegal for so long, and now they're trying to, to make things right. How does that go?
Okay, so I'll give you a two-part answer. The first part of it is, why did you open the door, right? That's the first thing, okay? ICE comes knocking at your door. You don't open the door unless they have a warrant. They have a warrant that has your specific name, right? That was signed by a judge that says we are here to pick up X person. Other than that, you don't have to. You don't have to open the door. You definitely don't want to do that, right? So I'm going to change your question and say they found you on the porch. Okay, let's say they found you on the porch, right? Because if they found you in your house, you didn't open the door, right? You did the right thing. So let's say they found you on the porch. So you are removable if you don't have your paperwork in place at the time, even though it's pending. However, if you are eligible for a benefit, even if they do place you in removal proceedings, you just renew that application for your benefit in immigration court. Okay. So they're unlikely to bother with you if you already have a pathway to a benefit, and it's already in process. So let's say you're married to a U.S. citizen, you have filed some of your paperwork, and ICE does pick you up, then you can just renew your application for that benefit in front of the immigration judge. Okay. Because unless you already have a final order of removal, you have to go through the court process anyway. Like if you don't have a final order of removal, you will not just be picked up and sent home.
Right.
Okay. So are there any resources for Zimbabweans who are struggling with immigration issues here in the U.S.?
So as far as social benefits, because sometimes people have an immigration issue, but they're also struggling with maybe like access to food, access to housing and things like that. You will then look at your local resources. You lean very heavily on your local resources, number one. Number two, some people have mixed households where the children qualify for, let's say they qualify for food stamps, right? And the parents shouldn't fear getting those food stamps because those are not for you, they're for the kids. So even if you were to apply for certain immigration benefits later in the future, that ask you about having received public benefits, you didn't receive public benefits, right? They can come in your name, but they're for the children. So you have to really look into what resources are available to you at the local level. Some local churches have like food pantries and things like that. When it comes to the legal side, you definitely consult with an attorney about your immigration issues. Some people are not in a place where they can afford an attorney, and you can go through the legal aid. Most places have a legal aid office that can assist with legal issues, immigration issues. Some nonprofits are also able to assist with legal issues. But if you have like a legal immigration issue, definitely need to consult with an attorney, whether private, whether legal aid. And then also just in general, have your ducks in a row, right? With any other thing that you have going on. Your housing, your banking, all those things, and just have someone that knows what's going on, and can pick up the slack if something happens.
So, another way that people have come to the United States from, from whether it's from Zimbabwe, Nigeria, European countries, is the diversity visa lottery program. Is that still active under the current administration, and have there been any modifications to that?
So the lottery is still active. There's nothing that has happened yet. The next lottery will run October, November. So we will know. And they don't release those instructions until right before, typically within about 4 weeks of when the lottery will run. So that's still a ways away. So we don't know for now if anything will change. The people that have already won the lottery, they're continuing to process. The lottery that ran this past year, this in 2024, we expect to get results in May. Haven't had anything to the contrary. So, I mean, so far it's still going. But we'll see. And I think
We have a long time.
yeah. And I think the bigger point is there were a lot of things that were said during the campaign.
Mhm.
But we really have to focus on what has happened so far, because if we worry about what's not on the ground yet, then people will just get afraid. So we just monitor what's really what is in place.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's a lot, Mercy.
It really is, honestly. Even we've been here for like what, 25 years, and I was like, oh my God, if I get
Right,
sent back, what am I gonna do?
right.
Where do I even begin?
Because that was, some of the chatter, right? That
Mm-hmm.
even citizens are not safe. So, we're sitting here like, oh my goodness.
Right. And
Where do I begin?
and I think it goes back to that point of fear, right? And I think that's how they want it, right? They
Oh
want,
yeah. Oh yeah.
that thing of, because really that's not possible, right? Citizens cannot be sent back. But even there was fear that with the birthright citizenship law coming into place, children who would not have qualified when they were born. So say a child was born last year who wouldn't have qualified under the current law, that child would be stripped of citizenship, which again, wouldn't happen. So it's just more the fear, really. I think that's the bigger point.
Right, right.
Wow.
So in your opinion, how do you feel, Zimbabweans or even other nationalities, because this is not just a Zimbabwean thing, the Latinas are really going through it.
Mm-hmm.
People from other, nationalities are going through it.
Haiti,
Yes,
the
yes.
Haitians are.
Nations are, they're also being targeted with this, but how can, people that are not from the United States, how can they support each other, in navigating these immigration challenges?
I think the first way is to not spread rumors, okay? Because
Right.
I think there's a lot of things that are out there, things that are terrifying and
Mhm.
that somebody has just made up, right? Um, I saw somebody who was posting that ICE is offering you $750 if you turn in an illegal immigrant, right? And then that circulates and people get scared,
So that's not true?
No, that's not true.
Do you know how many
Um,
times I've heard that of people just walking? And I'm like, why? Where would they get the seven? The whole point of this is to cut down some expenses. Now we're paying
Exactly.
750 for a
Remember, they
person
have
to
to pay to send people back to their countries
Exactly, in
too.
addition to 750. So I think things like that, in addition to just being mean-spirited, it's really it's really just sad. So I think one of the ways is just to not spread rumors, like really try as a community to focus on sources like actual articles from organizations that we know, okay, this is a legitimate source.
reputable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, and then the second thing I'll say is to support each other by being a safe space. Um, because it's a sensitive thing, right? It's a sensitive thing
Yes.
to not to be undocumented. It's sensitive. Um, and just to have it not be something to laugh about, that somebody has this need, um because people will need shoulders to lean on, right? You'll need
Right.
somebody who can pick up your kids. You'll need somebody who can take over if something happens, and you need to be able to tell someone, right? Because there are a lot of people who are undocumented and who've never told anyone. Like it could be,
Right.
and it could be somebody who owns a local business in your community that you don't know that they're undocumented and they have no one to tell. So I think just and just the words we use, right? Because it's a mix, right? We can all be from a foreign country, but some people are now citizens, some people have a green
Yeah.
card, some people are on a temporary visa, some people are undocumented. So just sometimes just the language that we use, even if you're just hanging out with your friends, these things can make people depressed. Like these times are very challenging, and people are going through a lot, and we don't always know who all those people are.
Right.
So just being in general, just being kind, and also just helping each other with resources. So if somebody knows of a resource, that helps with whatever it is, whether it's housing, whether it's food, whether it's whatever, just sharing those things and in different ways. You guys have a platform that people can share on, and that's an important resource as well.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. You've honestly calmed our spirits. We're
Yeah.
a little bit more settled, more informed, because there has been a lot of information being thrown at us, and we're not legal individuals. So some of it we're just believing and we're just going on with that. So thank you so much for your time today and your insights. We really, truly appreciate it. You guys can find us on Instagram and Facebook at ZimLadiesRT. Visit our website at zimladies.rt.com and catch us on Cityscape and brownstoneworldwide.com every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll post Mercy's details on our page as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mercy.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you.